Hi, my name is Galinda Lipina, and I help people create harmony within themselves and with their relationships. And today I'm going to talk about what is the reason for 99% of fights. Why do we fight? The reason is usually that we respond or react to our interpretation of what happened, and we think we actually react to what happened. Let me give you an example. I was dating a guy a few years ago, and he had such a inner setting within himself, then whenever he lay down, he would fall asleep within 30 seconds. And usually, when we would go to bed, I would want to talk about something, I want to share something. And there's been a few times when I was sharing something really deep and vulnerable, and I would hear him snore. And that triggered the shit out of me because I was feeling not important, I would feel ignored, I would feel not loved, but I did not get triggered by him falling asleep. We all fall asleep. I do, you do, everybody does. What I got triggered by is he fell asleep. I made a meaning in my head subconsciously that, oh, am I so boring? He doesn't want to talk to me. Like, can't we really talk at all? Like, does he not love me? Does he not care? And then I responded to those thoughts with the feelings. And when we talked later, because I realized it was just, my trigger, and I expressed that to himself. He's like, no, not at all. I love you. I care about you. You are important. But when I lay down, I fall asleep. That's what happens. So then we made an agreement that anytime I want to talk, I would ask him to sit down so he doesn't fall asleep. But how often do we do that in different contexts? Something happens, we make a meaning, and we react to it, and we think that's what the reality is. If you hear yourself or your partner saying, oh, you did that and you don't love me, or things like that, those are just like, we're not fighting about what actually happened. We're fighting about our interpretation that we're sometimes not even speaking out loud. Another factor that adds to the fight escalating is when we are in the triggered state. It's also called the stress state. When we are in the stress state, we cannot think straight. Our logic goes away. The part of our brain that is responsible for making logical conclusions and communicating properly, it just goes offline. That's why when people start to fight and the energy starts to escalate, at a certain point, the fights become not productive because you can actually not logically articulate anything. And it's better to just take a break, go for a walk, take a few deep breaths, come back to the rebalanced state, and then resume your communication. Another thing that adds up to the escalation of the fighting is usually something happens, you react. The way you react very often pushes the button in another person that triggers them. And then now you're in the triggered state and they're in the triggered state. And from then it starts to escalate. That happens because very often we unconsciously choose our partners with the mirror traumas and mirror triggers. So what to do with that? You can use it as an opportunity for mutual healing. And usually the person who is less triggered is the one who can call it a pause, saying, hey, we're starting to escalate here. It's not going anywhere. Why don't we take a breath, go for a walk, hold hands, do whatever, and then resume? So to sum it up, fights usually start because we react to our interpretation of what happens. And if we start to deconstruct that and we can start to elongate that moment when this is what happened and this is our outburst, we can start to see and we can start to get to know ourselves to see, ooh, this is my usual pattern of how I interpret things. I often feel ignored. I often feel not important. I often feel not loved. And to that, I usually react in this way. Then you will have more control of yourself. You will have more control of the present moment, and you can be more conscious and more available for the communication so that you can actually have a productive conversation that results in some new agreement, some new clarity, rather than regurgitating something that's not even true. So if you like this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends and apply this principle in your next fight. Just notice, what is it that you reacted to? What did the meaning that it was that you gave to it? And what was your emotional reaction? And what was your behavioral reaction? And see if you want to change it somehow to have a better experience of fighting.